Hello and welcome to another episode of Too Long Didn't Read. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing last night's election debate, the fact-check fiasco, the general election campaign more generally, and as you probably just heard, as always, I'm joined by Zach.
Yeah, hello again.
And Ben.
Hello.
I don't know why I expect you to prove you exist. Every time I wait for you, you're like...
There is a smoother intro somewhere.
I mean, we'll work it out. We're only like 10 episodes in. Is this episode 10?
Oh,
Is
wow,
it?
yeah.
I think we need a confetti cannon. We're still picking the ones out.
No,
from
we don't. We
subscribers.
definitely don't. I've seen The Office after that, 2 months on, and it's still a mess. We don't need a confetti cannon.
I've got some plans for more confetti cannons.
Oh, dear.
Okay, so a few things before we get started on the things I just mentioned. We've got a few announcements from TLDR. Firstly, an announcement is that at the beginning of next week, we're interviewing Jonathan Bartley from the Green Party on the Green Party, basically. Any questions we want. We've been given a pretty free remit to interview him.
It's worth mentioning. He's the co-leader.
He's the co-leader.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I said that or not. He is the co-leader of the Green Party. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask him, then we're going to have something up on Instagram and on Twitter asking for questions. If you comment on that, we'll get them. Or you can just email us at hello@tldrnews.co.uk using the subject line. Ben, what's the subject line?
Not another one.
It's been a while since I've done this.
Yeah, it has been. I'm trying to think of another place that we can do. It has to be something UK. Angel of the North. How about that?
Okay. Subject line, Angel of the North. We'll pick all those ones out. We'll filter
how
by
you
that.
self-describe, Ben?
No, it's the first thing that came to mind when I thought of like a big icon in the UK. We've done loads. We've done London ones before. I thought I'd go with the more northern one.
I like it. Also, two other things. We're going to be doing a video on every manifesto as they come out. The Green Party one is out tomorrow or Thursday, depending on when you're listening to it. We're already working on the Lib Dem one. Labour is supposed to come out in the next 24 hours or so. So we'll get on that too. So keep an eye on the channel if you're interested. And finally, a bit of news. I'm not sure if Zach has seen this news yet. But at least according to Discord, I'm running for Prime Minister.
I have seen a little bit of that. Yeah, no, I
so
kept enough of it.
we recently set up a Discord channel server. I don't know what it's called for TLDR. There'll be a link in the description where you can get involved and talk to other TLDR viewers, to us, have a nice little conversation.
If you're a patron.
Sorry?
If you're a patron.
You don't have to be a patron.
Oh, you don't? Is it just
Anyone
open?
can join. If you're a
Wow.
patron, you get like a special orange name. So you look
that's
special.
what the orange is.
I know.
Okay.
But besides that, no, everyone can join. There'll be a
I
link
also
somewhere.
didn't know that, Zach, either.
Well, there you go. Everyone's learning things.
Yeah.
And yeah, completely unprovoked, they made me like some campaign banners and stuff for the TLDR party. Apparently, I'm running for Prime Minister. I wasn't prepared for it. I'm not sure where we're running in the country. I have to work that out. I also think it's definitely too late to apply. But besides that, it's a great campaign so far.
And also, the campaign seems very left-wing from what I saw. I mean, I think we're trying to be
many
impartial.
Of the policies.
They put some policies.
What are my
I think,
policies?
I honestly
I saw more teachers and more hospitals, which seems like everyone's going for that this election season. So I'm blending in nicely with that policy.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah, I think that's just what
and
I
saw. I think I saw one that was like...
That's not that left-wing. More
Ben
teachers, more hospitals. Hate them.
No, that's true, actually, yeah. Maybe I saw something else. I can't remember. I glanced at it earlier, is all.
Anyway, basically, if you want to get involved in the conversation, have a chat with us. The Discord is the place to do it. And if you want to make me more campaign material, who knows? Could be useful in 2022.
It's probably quite a good video.
2024, sorry.
We could do one of us running as an MP.
We can each have a constituency. That would be fun. And on election night, we got to see, like...
No, but I mean, like, really, you could, like, try. I mean, it would be a long video documentary thing.
Wait, hold on a minute.
Trying to become a candidate.
We already did a section in the Patreon-only podcast, bit of a plug there, for the crazy ideas. I feel like that should have been mentioned there.
Yeah, it's a good idea. One of us should run for
Well, no, it's a terrible idea, which is exactly why it shouldn't be in the legitimate podcast.
It'll be a great series. Anyway, as Ben mentioned, my word, we're teasing the hell out of these people. We've got so many announcements. But yeah, we made a Patreon-only podcast about like terrible ideas we've had for TLDR shows and like things. So if you're interested in that,
yeah, if you like the informal nature, it's just
it's
completely
super informal.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's a waste of your time, like, if you're being honest about it.
Yeah, totally.
It so is.
So, yeah, I haven't heard it.
I don't know why you're listening to this one. So,
so let's get on with it because we spent 6 minutes and we said nothing but just promote stuff. And people hate it when we promote things. So let's get to the first topic.
Yes, let's
discuss last night's debate.
Ben, why don't you start? Go on. Oh, have
Okay,
you got
so
a
I've only
question
just
lined
watched
up?
it,
Sorry.
yeah.
No, I got no questions. I think we've all
Okay.
made copious notes.
Yeah,
Ben's just watched it minutes ago.
Yeah, so he's fresh.
It's fresh in your mind.
Okay, so I just want to say some sort of overarching things before we get into the nitty gritty of it. But basically, that debate, from what I can tell, was Boris trying to bring it, or Mr. Johnson trying to bring it as much back to Brexit as possible, and asking Corbyn constantly which side he's going to campaign for on the second referendum, and
10
Corbyn
times, according to
consistently-
Gove.
Sorry.
Apparently 10 times Gove said that happened.
Did he say? Okay, yeah. So that was the whole way through every question on the NHS and everything else. It was Johnson trying to either bring it back to Brexit or to try and pin an answer down from Corbyn on which side he would campaign on. And Corbyn was trying to avoid that. He spoke about the NHS a lot, and it seemed like he was just trying to avoid as much as possible any questions on which side he would campaign on. There was the quickfire section, which was a bit weird. I've not really seen that much before. The fun question as well, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. That was a bit strange.
We've already talked about this. Me and Zach had a conversation about this in the office.
We
Oh,
told
did
each other
you?
to save it for the podcast.
Yeah, we started having a conversation, then we were like, Zach was getting angry about stuff, so I said, keep it for a second.
Did you hear the groans from the audience at the end in Johnson's concluding statement when he said something about he started talking about Brexit again, and then I think
I
they
did
also
hear that.
groaned
Yeah.
with Corbyn with his the concluding statement as well. Something about I can't remember. At some point, I heard from the audience somebody audibly say out loud, "Oh, here we go," or something like that when he started
really?
an answer. Yeah, there was a couple of that for like both of them. It was I think people were getting a bit tired of their talking points at times. But yeah,
understandably.
was there anything big that I missed there? Was that was kind of the overarching things?
Yeah, I'd argue no. There wasn't anything that major. I mean,
No.
I'm saying that while looking at Zach's notes and my notes. So there's we've written a lot of stuff down.
I've
like
written
a
a
lot
lot,
of things happened, but like of consequential stuff that's going to swing the election. I think there was very little of substance. I think it was
I
a
would have to agree.
pretty dull debate.
Yeah.
Well, my notes are organised just because I wrote it as I was watching, kind of in chronological order, so I could just go through some points
Yeah,
and see
me
if you two
too.
have got anything to add to what I'm saying. So I've got some just points on
Yeah,
more of the
go for it.
nitty gritty. So opening statement, Corbyn mentions the second referendum almost like off the bat in his opening statement, and he also mentions the "for the many, not the few." So evidently they're going with that. They're going with that mantra again.
It's
so
pretty good. I quite like that.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty decent.
It's a bit old though.
As campaign slogans go, though.
I kind
I
of
think
agree.
he's also gone. No, you go, Ben.
Yeah, no, it's very 2017. Like that was that not the name of their manifesto in 2017?
Yeah, it was.
I'd be interested
Yeah,
to see whether they
it
call
was.
it the same thing. So there's that, and then Johnson goes with his dither and delay, deadlock and division with Corbyn, which
So
just on
many
alliteration
Ds.
purposes
I know.
is quite good.
Yeah, we did. Have you seen? We posted like a bingo card of like stuff they
I
kept
did
saying.
see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that
there was
on
some
there?
absolute- Yeah, it's on. I'm pretty sure dither and delays on there. It's got to be.
Has to be on there. That was
Um,
unbelievable.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of that generally. I mean, you've already touched on this, but like just the fact that there was a lot of clearly rehearsed lines, a lot of catchphrases.
Yeah.
It felt more like an excuse to ram those in every possible occasion rather than like actually debate anything.
Yes.
But yeah, so the first question was essentially, will Brexit be done soon? That was like what it boiled down to. And both parties tried to say yes.
Yeah, they did.
From my interpretation.
Yeah.
Slightly different ways. Johnson just said we'll be out by the 31st of January. Who knows whether that will actually happen. We've heard promises like this before, but regardless. And then Corbyn promised that they'd have a new deal within 3 months, or at least attempt to, I guess. And then 6 months' time, they'll put it back to the people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is also equally a questionable timeline.
Yeah, the
because
time
that's
frames for both of them.
really quick, both of those.
Yeah.
And I get why
Well,
it's...
very quick. The Johnson thing. The thing that Johnson says it's going to happen, that is very ambitious timetable wise,
Yes.
is obviously his trade deal that he wants to get done by
Yeah.
December 2020.
Yeah.
Which Corbyn actually brought up, didn't he? He said it took 7 years to
Yeah. 7
do
years.
a US trade deal,
Yeah.
and that we're not going to have one done by December 2020.
Yeah,
And
that's what,
Johnson's,
Which is probably true.
yeah, no, I agree. I think Johnson's return argument is always that he got his deal sorted in 3 months.
Yeah.
Therefore, he can get. I mean, it obviously doesn't follow. It
Which,
obviously
yeah,
doesn't
because
follow that you can get a trade deal done because
And
you got
also,
that
it's
deal
like
done in 3 months.
95% May's original deal.
And
like,
then a little
saying
bit of
it was done
checkers
in-
cut out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So saying it was done in like a few days is really misleading.
Yeah,
He mentioned that a few times as well through the debate.
I know.
He kept mentioning it'll take 7 years for the negotiations with the US and the EU.
I think that's a good thing to point out. I think it's something it's understated in mainstream media at the moment. The fact that the December 2020 promise is just a complete pipe dream,
Yeah.
and yet he just seems to be getting away with it. So I think it's a good thing. Corbyn should probably expend some more political effort trying to get the country to focus on that. I think it's a good idea from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
One other. Oh, go on, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there was another point that I think that Julie Etchingham, who was the chair in this,
What do we think of her though?
very
Just
good.
Before we move on, I thought she was pretty good.
Yeah,
I think
very
she
good.
So do I. I thought she was
Reasonably
good.
impartial or impartial enough. Had
She-
some good lines. Bit
She
of
did have some good
personality,
lines, and that's what I
Kept
want.
them
Yeah,
kept them pretty on track, to be fair. And also because she was adding in her own like sub questions that they weren't as
Yes.
prepared for, made the whole debate a bit more interesting than just like a bunch of pre-prepared answers.
yeah, I agree with that. She said on this question, she asked Johnson, I think, would you mint a new coin for 2020?
Yeah.
I saw that. That was good. Yeah.
And she
That's
did something
funny.
a bit later on where she was saying...
Ben, just quickly explain that reference, just for people.
Yeah,
who don't.
absolutely. Go for it.
No, you. I can explain it if you'd like to, but
No, you explain it.
okay, fine, stop it. But for basically, for everyone who doesn't get it, the government said that they would mint a new Brexit 50p piece that would come out on October the 31st.
Yeah.
They spent quite a serious amount of money making that coin, and then
Yeah.
obviously we didn't leave. So
It all got melted down, right?
Yeah, it all got
They've
melted back
left
down.
the melted down coins aside for these new ones. Apparently, they're
Have
gonna be
they?
using the same ones. That's what I read at the time. So
right,
well, that
okay.
seems sensible. But hey, there we go. So that was the reference. Anyway, what were you going to say, Ben?
Well, I was going to say is that she made a couple of comments similar to that throughout. So she made, obviously, that one which was kind of pointed at Johnson, and then another one later on which was about the magic money tree. And then she made a comment about Johnson, like, have you got multiple magic money trees? And then Johnson came back with, he's got a full forest. Which is so yeah, I think she was quite good in the sense that obviously those things kind of lighten the mood a little bit, but I don't think she didn't do that just to one side. She seemed to, as I say, I kind of kept my ear out for times that she did that, and she seemed to put them to both of them, which was which was good. I like that.
Completely
It's what
agree.
we like here, impartial reporting. So yeah.
Yeah, I think she was solid.
Yeah. Anything else on the first question, or?
There was one thing. I think Johnson came up with this line when he was trying to talk about how great his deal was, and he said, "It's ready cooked or oven ready." Is the
ready.
term,
He
the
said
phrase.
that quite a few times.
Oven
now.
ready, and then he said it's approved by the EU and it's approved by all 635
yes,
Conservative
I was
candidates.
About to comment on this, yeah.
And I was going to be like, that's not that great an achievement.
Not
It's
really,
your party.
yeah.
I know you didn't get them to support you last time, but given that you've picked the candidates, you'd really hope that they were in support of your main policy.
Exactly.
Well, what I was going to say about that is it's kind of funny that he says that now, because it's almost alluding to the fact that at one point
Yeah,
they didn't,
exactly.
which they didn't, because he
No.
then kicked them out. Was that when he kicked them out? The people that didn't.
Yeah,
back
that
him?
was.
Oh no, that was something
Why
else.
was he bringing that up anyway? Yeah, it's a good point. Why does he want to? It does feel like he's harking back to when he had
Yeah.
to kick out his own MPs.
It's almost like,
Which is-
we're finally, we've got everybody backing this deal. It's like, as you quite rightly say, but that's your party.
Yeah.
But Corbyn, like, I was going to say, could Corbyn make the same claim? But he hasn't got a deal, so I suppose definitely
not
not.
yet.
But it just seems like a ludicrous sort of, sounds a bit of a weird thing to bring up. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. One other thing on this section, well, at least one other thing I have. What do we think of the prop stunt? So
that's the
Johnson-
next thing. Yes.
Corbyn, brought out a document which was the Freedom of Information request documentation he got about a meeting.
This was when I went for my second dinner.
You missed it.
I just missed about a minute of the debate for everyone
You missed
thinking I
this
didn't do
bit. It
proper
was a
reporting.
great bit. He pulled out this document that was like pretty much all redacted information from a meeting with the US drug companies and things. Essentially, he was claiming that it showed that Johnson was planning on selling the NHS to the US, which is a common refrain from him.
I think it was a very weird thing to do, because like surely when you're going through this planning and preparation for debates, you come up with these ideas. So this idea was presumably floated, and then there must have been a discussion at some point with, well, what's Johnson going to come back with? And I really hope that no one said, well, he can't say that he's not going to sell off the NHS, because, well, he definitely can say he's not going to sell off the
that is what he
NHS,
said.
and that's exactly what he said, and that's exactly what you would expect him to say. Like, the NHS in this country, for like non-UK like listeners, the NHS in this UK is almost like a non. Everybody accepts it. You know, you can't say anything bad about the NHS, and rightly so. It's, you know, a big institution in the UK, and any talk of selling it off or privatisation would be just political suicide. It would be you know, something that politicians just cannot do. So the minute you say, you know, you might sell off the NHS, you're just opening up your opponent to go, well, I'm definitely not going to do that, and that nullifies the point. So I don't see what Corbyn was getting at there. He just gave Johnson the opportunity to put that issue to bed effectively, which was, well, I'm not going to sell off the NHS, and that's kind of that. Like,
so you think that point didn't land for Corbyn at all?
No, not at all. I think that.
Okay.
Well, I suppose you could make the argument that it's to do with trust. You could say that, well, Johnson's saying he's not going to, and that relies on you trusting him. But I think it's almost the point I would make is it's almost not to do with trust, because if he was to, there's a recording in a debate him saying we're definitely not going to do that. And when it's the NHS, something that vital, something that is that sort of revered in the UK, nobody would let that. No one would just forget that, and if he was to do that, they'd harken back to this, and it would be his political career over. So no, I think I don't understand the tactic personally. Maybe you two. Well, what do you two think about that? I mean, I know that you didn't see it, Zach, but I mean,
no, I only missed the prop stunt. Unfortunately, I literally just missed that.
Yeah, I think it was really weirdly timed as well. It was chucked in the middle of a argument about Brexit. It would have made a lot more sense if he tried to land it during the NHS section. I guess maybe he didn't know whether they'd get to that or not, and he printed this out, so we needed to use it. But it did feel a little shoehorned in, and because of it, that it meant that Johnson was never really questioned any further on it. He was just able to say it's not true, and there was no back and forth there. It kind of just died. So yeah, I agree. I'm not sure how much impact that really had. I think it wasn't a terrible idea. Like, it was fairly impactful as a move, but it died very quickly, I think.
Well, there's a history of those things like props in debates, and some of them have landed better. So 2010, there was the infamous note saying all the money's gone, effectively. Yeah. Was that 2015? I can't remember. That was 2015.
Yeah, 2015. It was a note from the Labour to Conservative government.
Yeah. So when Labour moved out, they left a note in the Treasury saying all the money's gone. I think they do that generally anyway as like a joke. They leave something jokily, like a comment, and the Conservatives tried to use that against Labour and brought the actual note to the debate saying the money's gone, just to prove that Labour's economically
That was really
bad.
Good foresight on someone's part, like to think
to keep
in 5
note.
years' time we're going to need this note.
Yeah, but they used it and it was quite effective.
Went for emergency. Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, I think it was. And
that
I'm
was
not sure
more
this was
effective
anywhere near
than
as
this.
effective. Yeah, this wasn't particularly effective, I wouldn't say. Any other points on the first question, really?
I think we should probably move on.
Yeah,
we spent ages on that.
We did, but the first two are kind of the most interesting ones, I think.
Yeah, true.
Second question was also Brexit related.
Yep.
It kind of boiled down to is the union worth sacrificing for Brexit? Obviously alluding to the issues with Scotland wanting to leave post Brexit potentially, and obviously the Northern Irish border as well.
Yeah.
Corbyn pretty much immediately agreed that it was damaging the union, and then Johnson said, "Yeah, but my deal kind of fixes that."
That's just not true.
Yeah, not true. And also then he basically said that adding a second referendum and adding the referendum on Scotland just risks the union even further, which admittedly maybe is also true. But the claim that his deal suddenly miraculously heals the divide was actually brought up kind of later on when he kind of flat out denied the fact that there was a border between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. And I think Julia and Corbyn both picked him up on that, or like Julia really tried to nail him down on it. So no, interesting exchange, especially considering the SNP weren't even there to discuss it.
Yeah, there was so much talk in that question about coalitions.
Yes.
Nearer the end of it, so as you said, they start off and Corbyn says he hopes it won't be broken up, but the that there is a border between Northern Ireland and Ireland because of the deal and all of that. But then, as I say, nearer the end, we get onto the coalitions thing, which I mean, I think you're right in saying it's a bit strange that they're doing that without the SNP there. And it's another situation where, to be fair though, there was some talk about that and how bad a coalition between Labour and the SNP would be because it opens up to a second Scottish independence vote, which supposedly Johnson doesn't think anybody wants. And then Corbyn comes back with, well, we've had 9 years of chaotic coalitions anyway, was I think his retort to that.
One of his better lines.
That was a good line, yeah.
Yeah, which was obviously in reference to the fact they had a coalition between the Lib Dems and Conservatives, and then it's not technically a coalition, but the arrangement between the DUP and the Conservatives, presumably.
It's close enough that we'll give him the joke.
Yeah, it's good enough for the gag, definitely.
But that was sort of the retort at the end of that. But I don't know, that it just seemed to move very quickly onto coalitions.
Yeah, I think the coalition thing was the main thing, and Labour pretty much denying the fact there'll be a coalition with the SNP, certainly on the terms the SNP are demanding. Yeah. In the interviews afterwards that they had with some of the smaller parties, Nicola Sturgeon pretty much kept on the table the idea of doing the some kind of arrangement with Labour, but continued making it clear that would have to be under the pretext that there would be some kind of second referendum on Scottish independence as well as Brexit, obviously.
Corbyn said, I think, as well, that we're not going to do a deal with the SNP. I think he openly said that, or something along those lines. But said,
I think what he was saying there was that he did say no deal will be done, but he was more explicitly denying the fact that the deal had already been premeditated between.
Yes, because that was the other point, was that Johson kind of made the claim. What did he say? He said he's probably already made a deal with Sturgeon.
He did. He said that, something like that.
Which, I mean, that's a pretty bold thing to say, especially if you've got no evidence of it. But I've not. I mean, does he have any? Do we think?
Not as far as
I don't think there's anything to that.
To say he might is one thing, but to say he probably already has one, I think, is something else.
He's trying to skate that line. He hasn't said there is, but he's certainly
classic Johnson.
Certainly tried to imply it.
Yeah, which is a bit. I think that's a little bit close to the line as to what's.
It is a bit cheeky.
Yeah. So
it leads on quite nicely to. Before we get up, I was going to say leads on quite nicely to the whole fact check scandal, but we should probably leave that.
We'll leave that for a moment, but that is
on the unionist thing. I think it is still amazing that Johnson gets to pitch himself as the unionist party.
Yeah.
Which, given that his Brexit deal does put, at the very least, administrative checks within the United Kingdom. And it's sort of one of those things for Corbyn where it's a lot of P's in there, self-perpetuating. In that, as Corbyn's vote share gets lower, the chances of him forming majority government decrease, and therefore the chance of him needing to form a coalition with the SNP increase, and that gives Johnson the attack line of there's going to be a second Scottish independence referendum, and then his vote share just further decreases. Whereas if he'd been able to maintain a polling at sort of 40%, he could have easily pitched himself as the more unionist of the two parties. Yeah. But Johnson now has that ground, which is quite a political manoeuvre from the Conservatives.
Yeah, it definitely is.
That's about all I had to say about that.
Okay.
Benny, you still there? Oh no.
Yeah, I'm still here. No, I'm just listening. I'm just listening to what you're saying.
Thank you very much. It's very kind.
Sweet.
Oh yeah, that was sorry. One last thing while we're on this.
There we go.
Yeah, I was just.
I'm
trying
leaving
to think.
that big awkward silence in the edit as well.
Yeah, I will do. I was just trying to think what it was that I was going to say, but it was to do with the fact that Labour didn't take it off the table in that, and this is one of the big things at the minute, is asking people questions. And Corbyn did this quite a lot through the debate, where he never openly denied something or openly said
I think he did actually.
Did he? Because I was watching it.
I don't know if I think he might have got a little bit caught up, because I don't think he really meant to deny it. And he said no deals have been done and no deals will be done.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, did he? Was that in reference to a coalition, or was that in reference to a second referendum on Scottish
Maybe he
independence?
meant, I don't know, whatever was referred to is meant by the word deal. Maybe he meant no deals as in no deals coalition, as in no sort of premeditated deals. I don't know what he meant.
Get his way out of it.
Exactly.
Regardless.
It's loose enough that it's not a binding commitment.
I think you're ultimately right that no concrete promises were made in this section or the whole evening.
That is politics today. That's good.
In fact, speaking of promises that were made, let's move on to the next section.
Yes.
Essentially, the question was, can we trust you? Pretty brutal question, but I mean, probably worth asking at this point.
No points for what Johnson brings it back to immediately.
Brexit. But on the promise point, I mean, I know I'm skipping forward a little bit here, but what do we think of the whole handshake thing? Was that one of the more ludicrous endings of the night?
That was so strange.
Yeah, Julia basically tried to... Well, she didn't even try to. She asked them if they both promised to like make politics nicer.
I like Julia. First name terms, Julia.
I mean, I don't feel like I have to be impartial with
No,
Julia.
neither. I think it's flattering.
Yeah. She tried to make them kind of both agree to make politics nicer. I don't know if those are her exact words or not, but basically just be nicer to each other. And they both kind of said yes and then awkwardly shook hands.
Johnson really moved forward.
Johnson went for it, is what I saw.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he definitely did.
He accompanied it with a very Johnsonian, "Come on, chap," and then sort of leant across. And
it was really awkward, and it was also
so awkward.
What are you promising here? Like, I know that ITV's trying to like do the right thing and like make things nicer, but what they didn't promise anything. They just promised to make things nicer. What does that mean?
She said,
"They just got a handshake."
Yeah. She said, "Can you make a pledge to be?" And I thought they were both going to go, Johnson promised to."
I will
but
do
there was
this.
nothing. It was just
they just shook hands.
thing, and then shook hands, and we went to a break, and that was that.
Going back a little bit on the trust issue, though, what do we think of their performance in that section generally?
I was surprised that Johnson got such a positive response to his response from the audience.
Yeah.
Because he essentially blamed Parliament.
Yeah.
And he said...
Which is his classic line.
It's his classic line. And I'm obviously wrong, but my intuition would have been that the audience would have maybe jeered at that a little bit.
They did a little bit. There was a point when he said that they could trust him, and everyone, not everyone, but a decent percentage of the audience laughed in response to that.
Yeah, but the bit about Parliament, he got almost like a little bit of a clap.
It was the initial statement about being trustworthy, I think, that got the laugh. And then as he justified it, his people certainly got behind him a bit more. And that was one of the more interesting parts of the evening generally, is where people were laughing. And I'm far from the first one to make this point. I've read lots of people saying this. But it's interesting that the audience found that kind of like laughable from Johnson, the whole trust issue. And then later on in the night, some of the points about like 4-day week and things like that from Corbyn, some of the more like domestic issues, got a laugh from the audience. So it's interesting that the audience isn't taking either side particularly seriously compared to like when you look back at previous debates. Sure, there were things people laughed at.
That's a good point, actually.
They seem to be laughing at the candidates a bit more and taking them less seriously as candidates than previous years, I think.
Yeah.
Well, they are both less serious candidates.
Well, yeah, I think I agree.
Fair to say.
Anything else on trust? I mean, they both just said they were trustworthy. There was a good bit in it actually where Julia, my good friend, she kind of got them both equally by saying like Johnson someone who works with him as mayor said that he betrayed everyone that he came into contact with basically, and then just said Corbyn couldn't be trusted because of the whole anti-Semitism thing. I was like, damn, you're really getting in on both of them here.
That was good. I remember that. It was
a good moment.
It was a good double-edged sword.
It was, wasn't it? But basically they both said, yeah, you can trust me, and kind of tried to make an argument for it. There wasn't anything that interesting there, but I don't know what you would really expect from that question. Neither side's going to say you can't trust me. They're both going to say, of course you can trust me, but do you trust that answer?
Well, the thing that I found interesting there was that Johnson took it straight to Brexit and said, well, people trust politicians more when we finally leave the EU.
Yeah. His main thing was the reason we've got this trust issue is because of Brexit. Which to a certain extent, I think might be true.
And statistically untrue. I mean, people have...
Thanks, Ben.
Are we keeping that in there?
Yeah, we're keeping that in.
Definitely keeping that in there.
Is
it untrue?
True, though. I think,
that's untrue. Absolutely, it's untrue.
Really? Why?
People don't trust... People have never trusted politicians. When you look at this... So there's always questions in surveys that say how much you trust. Maybe they're less trustworthy now, but they've never actually trusted politicians.
Oh, I see.
They're consistently below, like I think I saw recently that in terms of they're below like estate agents and things like that in terms of who you trust. The person on the street, they're like 50% of people trust a person that they come across in the street, and like less than I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was around 20%, less than 20 would believe MPs. Like they've consistently shown that people do not trust MPs. I mean, it dipped after the expenses scandal, obviously, but
of course.
So at least for what I'm saying now is definitely true post expenditure scandal, and might even be true prior to that as well. But this isn't a Brexit invention. People have never trusted MPs.
I don't think that suddenly they've seen the light and realised that MPs lie sometimes. My point more was that I can see the line of reasoning that some people are feeling betrayed by MPs and therefore they don't trust them as much. So I see what he's going for. I see the narrative he's aiming for. I agree with you that like clearly there's a bigger trust issue there. But I can see why some people might have had their like mistrust kind of like stoked a little bit by the whole Brexit issue.
I mean, I'll backtrack slightly in the sense that
you're going to slap me down a little less hard this time.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Savage.
Yeah, look, I agree that with what he's saying generally, which is that people don't trust politicians. Like that makes sense, and undoubtedly Brexit's probably played a role in the lessening of trust between that people have for politicians. But on the whole, people have not trusted politicians for a very long time anyway, is more what I meant. I agree, it sounded very much like I was slamming down there, but that was not.
It didn't even just sound like it, you were.
Okay, fair play.
Then we've got anything else on this section? I don't
Well, just on,
more.
but like, I did, but before we finish off on that trust thing.
Sure.
Ben, do you know anything about like you were saying that people have never trusted politicians, which is probably true. Has there been like an increase or decrease in trust in politicians? Because my intuition would be that there must have been a decrease in trust in politicians.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. This is from Ipsos Mori, I think.
Ooh.
We trust Ipsos.
Good source.
It's from 2015, so pre-Brexit. Politicians generally trust is less than 25%, and distrust is obviously, over 75, so it must be around 20-ish%. Politicians generally, slightly up for government ministers, which are both below estate agents, journalists, bankers, business leaders, trade union leaders, managers of the NHS, pollsters, civil servants, ordinary man and woman in the street, the police, TV newsreaders, clergy and priests, judges, scientists, teachers and doctors.
This is a long list.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Are those people that people don't trust? Or
No. This is
they trust more than politicians.
Yeah, but do they also not trust those people?
The point at which it goes above 50% of people that they trust is pollsters. This was 2015. So they trusted pollsters just over 50%, and then
is that just because the pollsters are the ones asking them and they feel the pressure to say they trust them?
Yeah, that actually might
Such
be
a needy
true.
question.
Do
you like posters?
But do you trust me?
Are posters good looking?
Okay. Yeah, here we go. Politicians generally, since 1983, when it started, trusting politicians to tell the truth has been never gone above 30%.
But is it lower now than it was in 2015? Do you have the most recent numbers?
It dipped notably from 2008, and then it kind of rose a little bit and then dipped again in 2015, is what the graph shows.
Interesting. Cool, so after that we then went to an ad break and resumed with question 4, which was a question about issues in the NHS, and basically the question asker, person posing the question, said, besides just dumping more cash to solve the issue, what else are you going to do, and is privatisation like a thing you'd be considering? Both of them started, unsurprisingly, as Ben has already alluded to, by praising the NHS a lot.
Yes.
Johnson said it was one of the most beautiful things that Britain has. Both of them promised money. Corbyn talked about how poor the current state of the NHS was and basically blamed a lot of that on privatisation and the current government, saying that under Labour's leadership it would be doing a lot better. Possibly the most interesting bit, I think, was the exchange about the 40 hospitals.
Yeah,
yes.
That is just a lie.
Yeah, and it wasn't nailed into enough, I don't think. I mean,
I think he was cut down.
You've got an hour.
Didn't Julia?
What are you meant to do?
Didn't Julia stop him short?
Yeah, so Johnson Corbyn called Johnson out. I literally not said Corbyn without saying Johnson first by mistake in this whole episode. Corbyn pointed out the fact that Johnson had claimed there were going to be 40 extra hospitals built. And that was inaccurate, and it was like a few refits, maybe a couple new hospitals. It wasn't what he was claiming. Did we just discuss it in the video? I don't think we have yet. Maybe
in a podcast at some point.
Anyway, it's a common talking point from the Conservatives that is widely believed to be untrue. Corbyn called Johnson out on that, and Johnson kind of blundered through it. Admitted they were only actually doing 6 new ones, but there was like money in for new ones.
They're not even 6. There's 6 reconfigurations. Yeah.
And like there's
20 potential.
The money's
refits,
in the pool or whatever. Something.
Yeah,
it's
something like that.
He kind of just fluffed his way out of it, or certainly he didn't have to answer any follow-up questions. Maybe it didn't look good to the audience. Maybe undecided voters will be swung by this moment. This is the point they'll look back to. But I think more likely he just fluffed his way over it and no one really noticed.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary of it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good, interesting point. I think that Johnson returned to that classic Conservative line about how you can't have a strong NHS without a strong economy.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, probably it's his best attack on the NHS. Like, it's, I think, the most honest.
Yeah.
And also, he's never going to outspend Corbyn, no matter how many hospitals he says he's going to build or reconfigurations he's actually going to do.
Yeah.
That was interesting because at that point he also self-described as a one nation conservative.
That was
which
interesting.
is a term we haven't heard for a while.
No.
Ben, you probably know more about the etymology of one nation conservatism, if you want
I should
to give
I should
some
know
Disraeli
more than I do.
context and stuff like that.
I don't like this is one of the things I do not. This is one of the things I absolutely should know more of, but I don't. I think it was 50s and 60s. It was about. I know that it was talked about then, but other than that, not much I can add to that.
No. Well, the real origin of the term is from one of the first Conservative prime ministers ever, Benjamin Disraeli, who wrote a book. Anyway, it's supposed to be like the sort of soft, happy version of conservatism about how one of the important things that a government has to do is bring the poor up.
Yeah.
And make sure that everyone is living harmoniously in one nation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what everyone thought Johnson was pre his leadership campaign. He was obviously the sort of, the Johnson, Amber Rudd, that sort of side of the Conservative Party. Maybe you'd just say this sort of the lefter side of the Conservative Party. But since he's become PM, he hasn't been so much of a one nation conservative as a slightly more cutthroat, arguably more extreme Brexiteer sort of conservative. So it was interesting to hear him allude back to that for the first time in a while.
Definitely.
I think it's what he wants his government to be post-Brexit. I think the Brexit thing is bringing out the worst in his government.
Yeah.
And he's got to be harsh and kick people out of the party and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think that fundamentally he sees himself as a one-nation conservative.
He certainly trying to project that image.
No, really,
it's exactly what he said. So
what did he say?
Well, like the fact that he describes himself as a one-nation conservative, he's not even trying to like.
He's really not being very one-nation conservative at the moment.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine most people watching don't necessarily understand like the history of it.
Yeah, the sort of connotations of the term.
Even still, I completely agree. Anything else on the NHS topic, Ben?
There was the thing. Yeah, there was the one thing at the beginning that Corbyn started with, which was the story about his friend with breast cancer, which was that was something. But I just thought that was worth bringing up and just mentioning that what had happened. I don't really have anything to add or comment to it. I just thought it'd be worth mentioning that he did go into that story. Corbyn brought up the story about his friend with breast cancer who'd the day before had passed away from it and was raised that in relation to the NHS. And I think she said that she waited something like 8 hours and it was sort of a reason to increase funding. So it was quite sort of, quite a heartfelt moment really, I think, in the debate. And just, as I say, not something that I really want to add to or anything. No comment on that really. It's just, I think it's worth sort of bringing up. And it was just something that had happened. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. Interesting, I thought that Johnson didn't remark on it at all, though. If I was Johnson, that feels like a really nice moment to be compassionate and like say something nice about Corbyn's friend.
He's such a blunder-prone dude.
Went over it.
Yeah.
I mean, probably it was safer not to say
Definitely.
anything. But I thought that was interesting. I was kind of ready for him to like say something that sounded like consolatory and nice, but didn't.
Was that
not? There's no obligation to. Like nothing against Johnson for not saying that. I just thought it was an obvious win.
Was that the question with the 4-day week? Did that come up then?
Yes, the 4-day week was on there, yeah.
So, what do we think about that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it got booed, didn't it? It got laughed at.
It got laughed out the room.
It did. It got laughed at, yes. And Corbyn's reply was something like, if people understood that it would be better for both their pay and their well-being.
I think, from what I remember, he recovered quite well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did,
actually.
Yeah, I thought so,
and people stopped laughing so much.
Yeah, pretty quick. I think it's an interesting topic, and it's something that we've talked about doing a video on, and we might soon, because it's one, as I think almost exactly said on Slack this morning, is one of those topics that gets laughed at now, but so did UBI a few years ago, and now that's on the Green Party's manifesto. There's people in the US like Andrew Yang talking about it seriously. There's a good number of people that are taking UBI. Like loads of people in Silicon Valley too, taking it seriously as an issue.
Do you want to explain UBI for the listeners?
Yeah, you should probably just.
It's
universal basic income.
Universal basic income is the idea of that everyone gets a certain amount of money as like a payment each month from the government. The idea being that that's a way of supporting like the minimum like amount of money you need for the absolute necessities, and that system will go to everyone, replacing the kind of benefit system we have at the moment. The idea being that if everyone has like that safety net, people are more free to do things they enjoy doing, pay time like looking after family members, go after creative pursuits, whatever. They're more free and open to do other things, and ultimately the belief is that'll be better for the economy and like for well-being. But that was a kind of fringe idea a few years ago, and now is becoming more mainstream. And it's potentially that this is something that's being laughed at now, but in a few years' time, more people will be arguing for it. Because I have seen some studies that back up that it is beneficial productivity-wise, and I've seen some examples of companies that have instituted it just in the company, and they've seen like productivity has remained fairly flat despite the fact they're doing a day less work because of the impact of the 4-day week. It's something I'm not particularly confident on. I haven't done that much research into yet, which is why I think it might be an interesting video topic. But yeah, it was interesting that it got such a obvious reaction from the audience. It got kind of shut down immediately from, well, you never know. It's like 10 people laughing. You can't tell the difference between that and like 50 people applauding. So you don't really know what the balance is, but it certainly seemed like that was a kind of bit of a joke to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think Conservatives have done well in turning that into a joke, because it's probably fundamentally quite a good idea, the idea that we should think about limiting the number of hours we all work.
Yeah.
But the Conservatives have definitely turned it into a whole another Corbyn pipe dream.
And also it's like one of those things that he doesn't have time to justify. Like he can't spend hours on the campaign trail
talking about like productivity ratios
about, like,
and
stats and saying,
exactly.
Like, Harvard Business Review report says that it's a great idea. Like he just doesn't have time to do it, and because of that, he's gonna let it go, and it just goes down as like a crazy idea, like you say.
Yeah, nice one. All right, so what was the last one was austerity, wasn't it? It was a question on austerity.
I tried to summarize, but my summary was weird, vague economy question. It kind of was.
You're probably spending too long doodling
I wasn't
around.
doodling at the time. All the doodles in this document are like retroactive doodles. But yeah, a lady who asked the question was essentially saying, "You guys have never really had to worry about money. How do we know that you're responsible with that?" Which is a little weird question, I think, because Johson, I'm probably true for both of them, actually. I was about to say maybe it's not true for both of them. I don't know much about Corbyn's like history with that kind of thing.
Must have had it marginally tougher at least than Johson.
You would have thought so. Yeah. Regardless, though, like I don't necessarily see the comparison there. I see maybe if you'd struggle a bit more in childhood and family and stuff, maybe you'd have more empathy. Maybe that was the argument she was going for. But equally, they've both held significant government positions or like shadow positions for a while. So I think their understanding of budgets and how to look after an economy is probably more developed than the average person, just because they don't know.
You would hope so, wouldn't you?
Just because they don't know how to budget for like a household doesn't necessarily apply. So I see like the higher level, like the moral question of like empathy and that kind of thing. But I think ultimately that line of questioning about can they be trusted because of their background, I think is a little bit. I don't know. I don't really know what she was going for in that section.
You don't really like the identity politics of it all, that sort of thing?
Not really. Like, yeah. I do get the argument, and to a certain extent, I agree with what she's saying, that there should be good representation, not necessarily the Prime Minister, but throughout the entire system. And I think that was kind of...
No, I sort of agree with you anyway.
An unnecessary aspect. Anyway, they both kind of agreed that we had to spend more and there should be less austerity, because no one likes austerity these days. The Conservatives have been campaigning on the fact that austerity's been ending for like the last 4 years, and it kind of hasn't that much. Mainly, I'd say Johson had a lot to say on this topic. I think it was kind of hard for Corbyn had a lot to say. Kind of hard for Johson to argue much on this point because he is the incumbent party and we've kind of seen what they're doing. I kind of, in his section, kind of wrote, he said a lot of nothing, which is not the best note. But
he did describe Corbyn as anti-capitalist.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
Which was
I heard that.
Quite a big label. I haven't...
This was the Magic Money Tree section as well.
It was.
So, yeah, they brought up the infamous statement from Theresa May in 2017 that there was they thought that Labour believed that there was a magic money tree that would pay for everything. And then there was that thing that I mentioned earlier with the magic money forest Corbyn supposedly has.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was brought up again. And then, yeah, as you say, the austerity bits. And I think, did Corbyn commit to a £10 living wage for everyone there as well?
Yes, he did.
That
Yeah,
was
he
the
got a
other-
big cheer for that as well.
£10 living wage, and also, what was the other one?
I think that's nearly a Conservative policy, though. I think they're
Pretty
planning
much,
on
yeah.
raising the minimum wage.
And also the living wage applies across all age
Yeah,
groups,
exactly,
not
that's
just
the main
over
difference.
25s is the minimum wage applies to
yeah,
at the
and
moment.
there's different categories.
Yeah. Which I've always thought is a bit weird. Like, to a certain extent, as they're doing the same
Also,
job.
such
why
a
does it
massive
matter?
variation.
It's
like,
a
you
really
can pay
weird.
16-year-olds like £5 at the moment.
Yeah. I don't really get like the argument for that. Anyway, yeah, I'd say there were some interesting points in the section. I think both clearly trying to argue that they're going to spend money. It's like the end of austerity.
It's
that was
pretty
the core
predictable,
point.
that question. You know what I mean? How that question is going to pan out.
Yeah, there wasn't a
Yeah.
whole lot that I found that interesting in that section.
All right, let's just move on then.
Unless you think there was anything, Ben. Have we missed anything? You just
No,
watched
no,
it.
that was everything I've got on my notes.
Cool. Then we moved on to the quickfire round.
What was there, climate question? Oh, I'm missing that.
Also,
was that a quickfire
this
one?
was quickfire.
Oh.
Also, we've been analysing this for 50 minutes, so I think we spent longer doing this than if you just watched the debate. Our summary
wow.
is taking longer than the debate is.
That's quite embarrassing.
Yeah, but you get a bit of analysis in here that you don't get in the debate.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't call it analysis.
I wouldn't say that was the
Maybe.
strongest sell.
No, I mean they're 50 minutes in. They're committed by this point. Yeah, so we got to the quickfire round. First question, is monarchy fit for purpose?
Oh, yeah, that was a funny one.
Good question.
Yeah.
I really it was quite good because they were just joking around about how short the answer should be. And all Corbyn said in response to the question was needs a bit of improvement.
That was
which
quite
I
witty.
thought was really
Yeah.
good. I like that a lot. And then Johson basically said, they almost set him up a little bit here. I mean, they didn't, but he said that the monarchy were beyond reproach.
Yes.
And then they were immediately asked, "What about Prince Andrew?" And it's like, not.
Also,
quite
the
so
beyond reproach one fell pretty flat. Like,
Yeah.
so obviously it's going to fall flat saying the monarchy's beyond reproach.
There's a
Like,
certain section of the
yeah,
country
if you're a
which is
passionate
beyond-
monarchist, but in the aftermath of Prince Andrew saying
Yeah.
some creepy stuff about the 17-year-old girls, whatever it
yeah,
was,
it's not a great time. to
saying
have that.
like they're beyond reproach is not a very tactful thing to
No,
say.
I agree. And then on the Prince Andrew question, both of them basically just made the same point that
Yeah.
we should concentrate on the victims first,
Yeah.
which is the right thing to say.
Yeah, rightly so, yeah.
Cool. Then climate change. And I think it's interesting. I do wonder, they kind of teed up the fact there were going to be like tons of people asking questions. They were all sat in like this little area, and we only actually got to 5 big questions. And I do kind of wonder, was climate change meant to be one of
Oh,
the
I
big
see.
questions and then got knocked? Because it's kind of weird that climate change got maybe a minute in this,
Yeah.
when it's, by most polling, the third most important issue in this election after Brexit and the NHS. So it's clearly a big issue, and it got almost literally no time. Pretty much all they were asked was, is climate change the biggest issue facing the UK? And they both kind of stumbled around, not really wanting to commit to it being the biggest issue, but saying, Johson said it was a colossal issue for the world. I think Corbyn said it was the biggest issue for the world, but didn't clarify for the UK.
Corbyn also got booed when he said that stuff about when it's hitting the poorest people in the world. And a couple
Yeah.
of people started being like, oh.
Yeah,
and he
they
did
were like,
a,
oh, not this again. But it's like,
Yeah.
empirically true.
yeah. What do you want him to say?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get maybe what
Oh,
they're saying.
empathy. What a good. Like, oh.
I kind of get what they're saying. Like, he always talks about that, but that's because it's like, that is his core message. That's what's important
Yeah.
to him. I think it's certainly less repetitious than like some of Johnson's point. Anyway, there wasn't a whole lot to be said around that, I wouldn't
No,
say.
I think that's about it.
And then we got kind of the crazy questions. Which foreign leader would you admire
Yeah.
most? It's like, who cares? I mean, Johnson said all of the EU 27.
That was quite a good answer,
And
I thought.
predictably brought it back to Brexit again.
Yeah.
And then Corbyn said the UN's leader, which is kind of a boring answer because no one knows who that is. Like, who cares?
Antonio Guterres, I've got written down here.
Yeah, you would. That would have been a lot cooler if you pretended
Yeah,
like you just
didn't
knew
you
that
say you had it
was
written down?
Then the final question was, I think it's interesting, like a meta discussion about like what was the point of this question. But first, what actually happened in the question. Final question was essentially, if you had to give the other person a gift for Christmas, what would you give them? Corbyn said that he'd give Johson a copy of The Christmas Carol so he could understand how mean Scrooge was. Decent response.
Oh, it was,
Yeah,
again,
they
They
were
were
surprisingly
told, don't
witty.
Be political. They were told, don't be political, and I would argue that that's political.
Not as political as
Yeah.
Johnson's response, which was a copy of his Brexit deal.
That is very true.
which I think was like a pretty poor look on him. I don't know. I haven't seen any data. Who knows what normal people think.
And what was the second answer, Jack?
But his second answer was like he rambled on about trees and then eventually said dams and jam.
Oh,
so anyway, but I think
I do like Dams and Jam.
I love dams and jam.
Oh, here we go. It's another
Is this
north-south
another
divide.
I had to Google it.
When you're down on Monday, my grandma makes a mean.
My
dams and
grandma
jam.
makes Dams
Oh,
and Jam.
It's a
We should have a
grandma
Dams and Jam off.
Invite them in.
I would happily attend.
Damson's just like it's a bit like a blackcurrant, I guess. I've never actually seen one in real life. I'm just guessing based on the colour.
I don't think I've ever seen one in real life.
It tastes
either.
like a mixture of like a blackcurrant and then like a sweeter fruit as well.
Yeah.
So like a blackcurrant and a raspberry.
Lovely.
We'll try and find you some for
It
Monday.
is really
no
good
doubt.
stuff.
Thank you.
It also always tastes like English and grandmothery.
Yeah, it does.
Because it's such a strong association.
But yeah, I think it was. Anyway, back to my point.
Yeah, Dams and
Sorry
Jam.
to take us away from Dams and Jam, but I think the look of Johnson again talking about his Brexit deal, especially after they'd already made the point multiple times about it being non-political. I think when I was watching it, even I was getting a bit sick of that. I was like, oh, come on, move on from that. Like, stop trying to play the game, just be normal. I don't know whether that make any difference to voters. I don't know if normal people think that too. I don't know if you thought that when watching it. But I just thought, come on, Johnson, just play the game.
Yeah, I probably had a slightly less strong opinion than you do, but I thought a similar thing. It was just a bit like, ugh.
I mean, it felt so try-hard. It felt like, yeah.
I think he was
You
a little
remember to
bit...
bring it back to Brexit.
He's got Dominic Cummings in his ear being like, tell me Brexit deal.
Yeah.
Let's do Brexit deal. Yeah, no, I just think he was a bit flustered because Corbyn came out with a relatively
A pretty
witty...
good one. But I'll agree with you, Ben, that it's still kind of political.
I
But
think that
they
was
were
very
always going to take a
political.
jab.
I
They
think
weren't going to say, I'll buy him a new jumper. Like, they weren't just going to say something random. They were going to do some kind of jab.
No, but you could-
I agree.
But so you could say something that's you vaguely know that they're actually interested in. Like you don't have to go with like A Christmas Carol to understand how nasty Scrooge was and all this. Like that's I would say the only reason anyone could argue that that's not political is because the follow up was a literal Brexit deal.
I actually don't think it's political, like, really at all. I think it's just that, like...
It's a good book.
It's just a little bit of bant. Like, it's,
Yeah.
you know...
I mean, it's almost like
Would it have been...
if you'd have said like, oh, 1984, like, oh yeah,
that would have been...
really good.
But 1984 was a more obtusely political book.
Yeah,
than-
that is a book about politics.
Yeah, exactly.
and then I suppose.
What
Johnson-
about if he'd
yeah.
offered him a copy of The Muppets Christmas Carol on DVD? Would
Okay, well that's fun, is what that is.
Okay. Okay.
So I think
I
the fact
agree,
that it would
best
be
film ever
Muppets
made.
would inherently make it less political.
True. Well, who knows these days?
How can you
we
argue
think they
that
should-
Kermit's political? That's all I'm saying.
I mean,
Do you think we should do more of these questions, or was it a complete waste of time?
I don't know.
I
I think
think more.
partly...
I think more.
Oh, really?
Me and Ben agree.
I think
by
partly
yes.
it does expose a little bit of their personality, and it is interesting from that perspective.
Yeah, and that's rare. We want a bit
And
more
I
of that.
guess the debate isn't establishing anything policy-wise.
Well,
There's
yeah,
no point
exactly.
when anyone's compromising.
The rest of the
There's
debate was
no
a
point when
waste of
anyone's
time
agreeing.
anyway.
Yeah.
So, like, all they're doing is reading out their key points from banners and, like, the front page of the manifesto.
Yeah.
So I guess this is more enlightening. Maybe we should just give them, like, cooperation tasks. Like, give them, like, little challenges. Just give them, like, a group interview from an assessment centre.
Yes.
Get them to watch them do that.
That would be
That
hilarious.
would be way better.
But look, in that format there, just getting back onto. Sorry, I'm actually gonna bring it back onto topic instead of railroading, which is amazing.
Oh.
But no, I was just gonna say on that. I think that the format of short questions forces them into a short answer, and it doesn't give
Yeah.
them the opportunity to just talk about whatever they want to talk about. So just saying.
Yeah.
Saying about is the monarchy fit for purpose? Just quick answers. Like
Yeah.
I think it's good. I
Ones like that,
format.
ones like that it really works for because there isn't any debate there. It's just a yes or no. Otherwise, you've got a bit of an issue. If they're allowed really short answers, they can say whatever they want and there's no follow-up. So you
Yeah.
do need a balance of the two, obviously, and you've got to be careful what questions fit into which section. But yeah, to be fair, they were pretty good at enforcing the time on that bit. They did a similar thing in the interviews, even weirder, I would say, in the interviews with the other candidates, the smaller parties. They asked all of them if they were to be on I'm a Celebrity next year with another one of the leaders from a party. Who
That's
would they
quite a good
pick?
question. Who did
Which
they
is a
pick?
good question,
Yeah, it
but
is.
it's also like, come on, like you're just.
No, I like
shoehorning
that
your own
sort of
show in
thing.
here. And also, it's because the debate was on pre I'm a Celebrity, and then post I'm a Celebrity, they got the interviews. It was like, come on, watch the whole block. Go on, watch someone eat a snake or something. I only saw the first two in completion, to be absolutely honest. So they both, Sturgeon and Swinson, both said they take Farage in to watch him do a Bush Tucker trial. decent response.
Yeah, it's cheeky.
Yeah, so I don't know what the other one said. I'll watch it later. But yeah, no, I don't know whether it's worth it. I think I guess it lightens the mood a bit. It's a
I think
nice
they should be on
ending.
TV more. You'd have a lot more time for these
Yeah,
sort of things.
I agree. And I think the only thing that annoyed me a little bit was because it was so limited for time.
Yeah.
And because they clearly abandoned serious questions to then do some like joking around messing ones felt a bit like to me, if you didn't have the time for that, why do you have the time for this? And I see the argument for having them. But I think in a debate that was so clearly kind of cut short at the end, I'd have rather seen it like 5-minute answer
I agree
on
with
another
that.
topic than Christmas presents. But it's a fun story. Who
Yeah.
cares? So generally, I'd say that we agree that it was a fairly successful night for both sides. Both landed some punches. Johnson probably performed better on Brexit. Corbyn more on like domestic policy. That was kind of. I mean, I'm purely projecting on you. That's what you think.
I would just.
That's what it sounded like.
Are we recording and everything properly now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say that while the fact that it was an even night makes it a bit of a loss for Corbyn, because realistically, Corbyn was the one who needed a good night.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Looking at the polling, YouGov's polling found that Corbyn was 49% of people said that Corbyn won, and 51% said Johnson won. So a very slight win for Johnson, but so small it's like kind of
It's
doesn't
negligible,
matter
doesn't
too
count.
much.
Yeah.
I think more what you were saying there, that Johnson has more to gain. No, Corbyn has more to gain, and really could have done with this going well. The TLDR surveys that we conducted, Twitter placed it almost exactly 50-50. And the Facebook poll gave Corbyn the advantage with 76% of the vote versus 24% for Johnson. But obviously that's a fairly small sample size. Who knows? There were people who probably voted who hadn't watched it, including our very own Ben, who voted at about midday before he'd actually seen the debate. So
I just wanted to see what the
out.
results were. I can't believe you
Yeah.
saw me do that. That's so... Okay, yeah. I did. I voted because I wanted to see what the results were. So I just tapped a box because you can't see the results unless you vote.
Which is why you can't always trust online polling.
Yeah.
Because of Ben.
Because of me.
Okay.
Specifically me going around to all the online polls and just voting randomly in them.
Anything else on the win-lose thing? Anything you want to say around that? It's kind of meaningless.
I think let's move.
I think...
No.
Let's move on to the big news.
I think this is more exciting.
This is the big news.
Yeah, I think it genuinely kind of is.
You've waited an hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah.
You've
We're gonna have to put a
wasted
time
an hour and
code in
50
the
minutes of your
description and
life.
be like, jump to this for the game.
Yeah.
So, during the debate, CCHQ, which is Conservatives' headquarters for campaigning, Conservative campaign headquarters, as some might call it, changed their press account, which was previously CCHQ Press, into Fact Check UK, and gave it a lovely new rebranding. Some would argue that it was deceitfully rebranded.
Let's just say it.
It was
Deceitfully rebranded. It was disgraceful.
So it was made to look like it was
An independent fact-checking site.
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And all the account was really used for was to promote kind of Tory statements as facts and to say that Johnson was lying.
Corbyn was lying.
Corbyn was lying, sorry. James cleverly went on Newsnight to try and defend it, saying that the account was only really made to, or it was the change to the account was only really made to rebut Corbyn's lies, which is like doesn't really matter
such
who's
a
lying.
crap account.
Both sides are lying,
Yeah.
but one side didn't make an account for it. And he also made a weird argument that they didn't actually change the handle. It's still the thing you would the username is still CCHQ Press throughout, which is kind of an arbitrary point because if they had changed it, anyone else would have been able to claim that handle. So they were never going to change it. So it's kind of a weird argument to make. Anyway, Rob also went on BBC Breakfast to try and defend it, describing it as an instant rebuttal to Labour's nonsense, which is also kind of crazy. Anyway, eventually Twitter got involved, saying it looked like the account had been used to mislead the public, and they said they'd take decisive corrective action if something similar was done again. So... interesting turn of events, really.
Oh, to say the least. Ben, have you got any? Because I think this is one of
Zach's furious.
the worst things we've seen in British politics. That's a big claim, but it really is.
I think I agree with you, and I think that the fact that it represented only to try, the fact that it was from CCHQ and it's deliberately trying to only fact check Corbyn, but was trying to present itself as one of these other fact checking. What are the names of the other fact checking sites? It's quite similar
Full
to
fact.
Full
It was
Fact.
stuff like that. Yeah, it was trying to be the same thing. There's a completely new colour scheme, complete rebranding. It was presented as if it had nothing to do with
Yeah.
Conservative
In their
Party.
defence, the handle was still the same. It did say fact check by CCHQ Press, but who's actually clicking into the account? They're going to see the fact check on their
Exactly.
timeline.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah,
It's
very
just-
cynically,
it's really
it's people are
disgraceful.
going to retweet that, aren't they? They're going to retweet it. You're going to see
Yeah.
fact check. You're going to see the little purple with the background with the white tick and the purple background, all of that, and it's going to look like it's a fact checking website that's saying that Corbyn's being bad and all this, and he said bad stuff or incorrect stuff. When actually it's just the Conservatives using that for political gain. It's almost trying to present themselves as an independent fact-checking site when it's just CCHQ.
Yeah.
And I suppose, if you had to defend that, that's what you'd say. You'd say, well, we didn't change the handle. If you click onto the account, it says that. But that's
Which
pretty
is
much
a
all you can
terrible
say.
defense.
It is a shocking defence. It's not even biased to just say they lied. They flat out lied,
Yeah.
and a really important point as well. It's just unbelievably disgraceful. If you haven't seen it, go on the news like right now and go have a look at their rebranded CCHQ Press.
Also, it's worth
Twitter
looking
handle.
at Newsnight from last night when Cleverly was being interviewed about it. They did not hold back on that either.
But disappointingly, the broadsheet journalism, I was looking at the front pages this morning, there's nothing on it. It was all about how, I mean, it's slightly predictably, but it's just it's sad anyway. I'm not normally one to rant on about the state of British journalism, but like it really is, it was all about Corbyn hammered by Johson on Brexit, which is fine. Like you can go for that, but just objectively, this was a huge story. It should have been your page 2. It maybe should have been your front page. Nothing really happened.
It'll be interesting to see whether it is, because it's really ramped up in the last day. Really, today it's become like trending topic on Twitter pretty much all day long. Who knows how much influence that will actually have? But it's really developed as a story. So maybe since then it will end up being on the front pages tomorrow.
You'd hope
Who
so.
knows? I don't think it'll be on all the front pages. Certain newspapers I can't imagine running with it. But regardless, I'm interested what you guys think about the whole thing, though. Do you think it was a tactic they thought would they get away with? Did they think
what was the sort of like meta
what was the logic?
incentive behind it?
Do we think so? My two strains of thought are either it was just an absolute screw up. They thought they were going to get away with it. They didn't, and it went wrong. Which feels kind of unbelievable to me because it's like
It's not
how
that.
wouldn't they
Whatever
get
the
caught
other
out for
theory
it?
is, it's probably that because they know what they're doing.
My other one is far more cynical, which is that they always knew they were going to get caught for it, but they thought the blowback wouldn't be this bad. They thought no one would really care and they'd get away with it. And they get to get people on the news saying, we were only doing it because Johnson was lying all the time. Corbyn was lying all the time. And therefore the story becomes the Conservatives have to defend themselves from Corbyn's lies. Everyone stops questioning, is Corbyn lying? Because they're all over the news. They're on Newsnight, they're on Breakfast saying, Corbyn lied all the way through the debate. That's their message. So they were hoping that's what they could get out ahead of the fact they lied. That's my more conspiratorial.
That would have been a very optimistic projection, or you know what I mean, like to think that you
could get away with it.
to get away with it, and people would just take it as, oh god, look at the lengths they have to go to stop Corbyn's
I don't know
lying.
if they necessarily think, oh, poor Conservative Party. I just don't know whether it goes into people's subconscious. That
Alternatively,
all the way through the debate, Corbyn was lying. That's the message they've said.
Yeah, no, I see that
yeah.
that's the message that you think they might have been trying to get across, but I just think that would have even been more stupid than just the blatant lie. Like the idea that you'd be able to get that message across just by lying to the public.
There is another thing that could have happened, which was quite simply that they knew that there would be backlash, but it gets people talking about it. So, I don't know how involved Linton Crosby is in this campaign. I genuinely don't. But
He's handed over to he has a new guy who is currently in. There's a chair in CCHQ, which is like the middle chair or something like that, and it used to be Linton Crosby, and it's now his deputy.
Well, nonetheless, one of the big Crosbyisms, and they might be using this tactic as well, which was if you want to change the debate, throw a dead cat on the table, which is basically the idea that when you want to change up what people are talking about, you throw something very shocking out there, it changes everybody and gets them talking about that, and it takes away from something else. Maybe it's to try and take away some attention from the debate itself. Maybe it was to try and take away some attention from something else. But that has been a campaign tactic in the past, that you, even if it's something bad, you're taking.
I see that, and that's a possible theory. But like, what would they be taking attention away from?
Yeah, exactly. And
there was nothing that pressing
But I guess they had to make the move.
The point is that it would be trying to take attention away to something that's bad, but less bad. Is
yeah,
the
exactly.
point.
And this is definitely the worst thing.
Yeah, I agree.
If it was a massive miscalculation.
They'd have had to make this decision before the debate, obviously. They wouldn't have known how the debate was going to go. So maybe their logic was, I don't think we're that prepared. Johnson might screw this up. There's more for Corbyn to win out of this, so if he can distract from that and limit his gains, then therefore that's the benefit.
I know that these are all like possible theories, but all of them are just none of them even make that much sense to me, because if that is the thinking behind it,
yeah.
I'm not dissing your I think they may well have gone through this thought process, but if they have, it's an exceptionally stupid thought process.
Yeah.
Because realistically, if Corbyn's doing really well in the debate and then you change your thing to pretend that you're a fact-checking website,
Yeah.
the narrative doesn't switch to the fact-checking thing. The narrative is now combined.
True.
Corbyn beats you, and desperately you turn into a fact-checking website. Which, I mean, there's just that's an even worse front page than Corbyn beats you. I don't see a sort of a good meta rationale for doing this.
So what is the rationale?
This is the question. That, or there are some real idiots in CCH. So I think there's unfortunately only really two options.
Yeah.
There are some quite stupid idiots in CCHQ who thought this might be in some way for the greater conservative good. One of any of the theories that you guys have just pushed. Or there's some real idiots, like really stupid people in Conservative HQ, who thought they would just full on get away with it.
Which is insane.
Which is possibly insane, but it's...
No, not possibly. There was no world they could have got away with.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Like, it was never going to work.
Or they thought maybe they'd be able to get a couple of shares, get a bit of a narrative out there, and then subtly switch back and
could you
go
really
back.
Could I?
That's what I'm saying. Both of those. Those are the only two working theories, and both of them involve people really stupid at CCHQ.
Possibly, and I know that Zach's going to just hit the roof about this one, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. What do you think that maybe they originally the plan was to not come across so much as a fact-checking website, and it was originally intended legitimately to criticise Corbyn?
So kind. Yeah. Okay. No, I don't think that. That
I
is
know
a ridiculous thing to think.
I'm not saying that you think that. You
I know.
your opinion
Listen,
very clear.
I know
I'm
that
saying
you know that I don't think that, but. And I'm admitting that, but that's not even like a think thing. That's just objectively, like, there was no way they could have thought that. That's not even like within the realm of possibility. There was no nearby possible world in which that is actually the case.
Okay, so
it's just not.
That's not the case.
But what you're saying there is that actually,
I'm not saying anything. I'm saying that
they thought
this might be how it started.
Yeah. So it's still on the idiot spectrum.
It's so far on the idiot spectrum, that one, that's even beyond the realm of possibility. That's just ridiculous. The idea that they thought that, hey, we're just changing the name, colour scheme, font, and content of our Twitter, and it's actually, and everyone's going to realise this is still CCHQ and it's not actually in any way disingenuous. It's just ridiculous. They knew exactly, well, they at least knew they were trying to mislead people.
Yeah.
There was no way that they thought they might actually be doing some sort of virtuous rebranding.
Okay.
Sorry, this really annoys me. I think this was like it's just such an openly deceptive thing to do.
Yeah, it's really.
I think in part the most frustrating thing about it is there has been a backlash, but sort of the lack of remorse from the Conservative Party is just shocking. Like, it really is. I mean, and before this sounds like some anti-conservative pro-Labour rant, I really don't have a horse in this race at all, and I'm not particularly aligned to either party. But I just think that from a sort of moral perspective, there's no integrity in the way that they've just behaved. It's really it's quite sad to see.
Sorry, the point that I was trying to make was not so much the outcome of what it was, but the intention behind it. And what I meant more by that was that maybe the intention when they started with that idea was that they would create something that would specifically criticise Corbyn throughout the debate, which would have been something that pretty much anybody would do. Is just, if your candidate's up there, you're going to try and root for them and say why the other candidate's bad. And that somewhere down the line there was an idea thrown out there that they could try and look like a fact-checking website, and it didn't go as the original plan was intended. I mean, your ideas.
What are you trying to say? What are you saying?
Well, what you're saying is, my point is that all of these ideas that you've thrown out there are involved with like deliberate deceit, and what I'm saying is maybe it wasn't deliberately originally intended as deceitful.
To be fair, though, in the interview with Cleverly on Newsnight, they tried to pin him down as whether it was his idea or not. And he essentially said that the digital team work within like a remit that he sets, trying to kind of not answer the question. And then a follow-up question was asked saying, like, but did you sign off on it? And he completely refused to answer the question, which to me reads as he did sign off on it.
Also, Ben,
like
even if there was some
policy.
sort of accidental snowballing where they started off with like quite an innocent idea and then someone went a bit far with the branding, it was quite far away from CCHQ, and then they thought, oh, we've got this. Yeah, it still happened, and someone had to sign off on it. Someone higher up in the Conservative Party would have had to sign off on it. So it's not just like some innocent accident where we got a little bit carried away with our rebranding. We didn't mean to pretend to be
someone had a good time
fact checking.
Paint
Yeah, exactly. We had an intern who was just going a little bit mental. It's like someone had to sign off on it, and it's the sort of collective work of a load of people. And the fact that for your theory to hold weight, it would have had to be the idea that firstly, whoever signed off on it maybe didn't even look at it, and that all of those people in that team just went, oh no, it's snowballed. Oh, okay.
Never mind.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. I'm just desperately trying to find the alternative.
I know
here.
you want
to see the good
reinstill trust in politicians, but it's too late, Ben.
No, and I understand that, but there'll be something. There's a possibility that it was something that snowballed. But you are correct that even if it did, someone had to sign off it at some point.
It's still very morally dubious. Not even dubious. Deceptive.
It's next level.
Duplicitous. However you want to put it.
Yeah, but
anyway, I've vented enough on that. It really annoys me, but I've vented enough.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see. We've been like keeping an eye on like various gaffes that have gone on during the campaign. So on election night, we can see which one of these still feel important, which ones still hold weight. I'd say this has got to be the most important one so far, surely.
Yes.
I mean,
maybe not the one that's landed the hardest necessarily, but like the most important. If this was to be an ongoing trend in politics going forward, people deliberately trying to mislead people online, this would be the moment we'd look back on and say that was the like starting point of that.
But there is a lighter misleading, but it's the fact they would pretend to be an independent fact-checking organisation. That's for some particular reason.
And it leans into the whole thing of fake news, just crediting fact-checking organisations. It just makes the whole thing look less credible.
Yeah.
Anyway, it'll be interesting. Basically, my point was it'll be interesting on election day. Is this something that anyone even still mentions? I doubt it. But is this something that holds water and becomes an issue for the Conservatives? Or if I log into Twitter in 20 minutes' time, has it already stopped trending? Does everyone not care? There's no way of knowing the answer to that just yet, but we'll find out later.
Yeah.
Anything else on that from anyone? Is everyone all angered out for a moment?
Well, I think by everyone, if you mean Zach...
You're too nice, Ben. You're too nice.
I'm desperately trying to see what the alternative sort of motivation for that was. But
fair enough.
Okay.
I tried that, so yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it, Ben. Nice to have. I was about to say devil's advocate, but it's literally the opposite of that. Heaven's advocate, God's advocate.